The call came on a Tuesday evening, right as I finished highlighting another chapter of my MCAT prep book. My mother's sugary voice floated through the speaker, sweet as antifreeze. "Franny, dear, your father and I need to discuss something with you. I'm Francesca, and I'd spent the last 6 years working 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA, all to supplement the medical school fund my parents started when I was born. Every birthday check, every summer job paycheck, every tutoring dollar, all carefully deposited while I dreamed of becoming a surgeon. We've had to make a difficult decision," my mother continued. "Collins is getting married again, and you know how special this is for him. The venue alone is quite expensive." The highlighter slipped from my fingers. I knew what was coming, but like watching a car crash in slow motion, I couldn't look away. "We've decided to use your medical school fund for the wedding. Collins deserves this chance at happiness, dear. You understand, don't you?" My voice came out surprisingly steady. "The entire fund?" "Well, yes. These things add up. The catering, the flowers, the honeymoon. But you're so smart, Franny. You'll figure something out. Maybe take a few years off. Work as a nurse first." I glanced at the acceptance letter on my desk, the one I hadn't told them about yet. The full-ride scholarship I'd won through merit alone, while they were busy planning my brother's 3rd wedding to a girl he'd known for 4 months. "Mom," I said quietly, "that was nearly $90,000. Now don't be selfish, Francesca. Your brother needs our support right now. He's had such a difficult time with his previous marriages." I thought about the countless nights I'd stayed up studying while Collins partied, the weekends I spent tutoring rich kids instead of dating, the summer internships at the hospital while he bounced between jobs. "Put Dad on the phone," I said. A shuffling sound, then my father's hesitant voice. "Princess, we know it's disappointing, but—" "Stop talking!" My voice had turned to ice. "I want you both to listen carefully. What you've done isn't just disappointing. It's theft." "Now, that's not fair," my mother chimed in from the background. "We're your parents. I said, listen." The silence that followed was satisfying. "That money wasn't yours to take. Half of it was mine, earned with my sweat and time. But you know what? Keep it. Consider it the price of my freedom." "What does that mean?" My father's voice shook. "It means goodbye." "Francesca, you're being dramatic," my mother cut in. "We'll discuss this tomorrow when you've calmed down." I looked at my acceptance letter again, at the scholarship that would carry me through medical school without them. "No, we won't. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Don't call this number again." "You can't be serious." "I am. And Mom, Colin's marriage won't last 6 months. But you'll figure something out. You're so smart after all." I hung up before they could respond. My hands weren't shaking. They were steady as a surgeon's should be. I blocked their numbers, then opened my laptop and bought a one-way ticket to my new medical school, 2,000 miles away. That night, I packed up my life while my roommate watched in confusion. "Are you really not going to tell them about the scholarship?" she asked, helping me tape up boxes. "No." I labeled each box with precise handwriting. "Let them think they broke me. Let them think they destroyed my dreams. It's better this way." "Better for who?" I stopped packing and looked at her. "For me. Because one day they're going to need something from me. And when that day comes, I want them to remember exactly what they did." She shook her head. "That's cold, Francesca." "No," I said, closing the final box. "That's karma." I was right about Colin's marriage. It imploded in spectacular fashion after 8 months. I heard about it through a mutual friend, along with the news that our parents had to refinance their house to cover the divorce costs. I didn't respond to the message. For the next few years, I threw myself into becoming the kind of surgeon who makes medical journals take notice. I specialized in neurosurgery, graduated top of my class, and landed a residency at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. My name started appearing in research papers and conference presentations, and they never heard my voice again, until the day one of theirs nearly lost hers. Medical school was my sanctuary. Between 14-hour study sessions and clinical rotations, I barely had time to breathe, let alone think about my family. That was exactly how I wanted it. "You're going to burn out," Yesenia warned me one night as we hunched over our anatomy textbooks in the library. "When's the last time you went out? Had fun? Called your—" "Don't!" I cut her off. "And I had fun yesterday. That cadaver dissection was fascinating." She rolled her eyes. "That's not fun. That's being a workaholic. Come on, there's this new bar opening downtown." "Can't. I'm assisting Dr. Harrison with the spinal surgery tomorrow." As an observer, she pointed out, first years don't actually operate. I looked up from my textbook. They do if they prove themselves invaluable. That became my mantra. While other students took weekend breaks, I volunteered for extra shifts. While they went home for holidays, I stayed to help with emergency cases. Every procedure, every diagnosis, every successful treatment became another brick in the wall between me and my past. 2 years in, Yesenia cornered me in the hospital cafeteria. "Okay, that's it. We're having an intervention." "I'm fine," I said, not looking up from my case notes. "You haven't been fine since I met you." She sat down, pushing my papers aside. "You're brilliant, Francesca. You're already top of our class. But you're using medicine to hide from whatever happened with your family." "I'm not hiding. I'm succeeding. You can do both." She leaned forward. "Look, my cousin's a therapist. She's really good, and I don't need therapy. I need to study." "Fine." Yesenia stood up. "But at least come to my place for dinner tonight. Real food, real conversation. No medical terms allowed." I started to refuse, but something in her expression stopped me. Maybe it was concern. Maybe it was loneliness. Either way, I found myself nodding. That night, over homemade pasta and wine, I told her everything. The fund, the betrayal, the silence. She listened without interrupting, then poured more wine. "You know what's crazy?" she finally said. "You won. You're becoming exactly who you wanted to be, without them." I twirled pasta around my fork. Sometimes winning feels a lot like losing. "Only because you're not letting yourself celebrate." She raised her glass. "To Dr. Francesca, future neurosurgeon extraordinaire, who didn't need anyone's money to make it happen." For the first time in years, I smiled genuinely. The years blurred together after that. Residency was brutal, but I thrived on the challenge. My steady hands and quick thinking earned me more and more responsibilities. When a particularly difficult case came in, the attending physician started asking for me specifically. I was in my 4th year of residency when I overheard 2 nurses discussing my brother's latest divorce. "Third marriage before 35, one whispered. "His poor parents must be devastated." I kept walking, my face neutral, but something warm unfurled in my chest. Karma really was a patient executioner. Then came the day of my white coat ceremony. I stood in line with my fellow residents, Yesenia, beside me, waiting to receive the long white coat that marked our transition to attending physicians. "Dr. Francesca," the chief of surgery called. As I walked across the stage, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. Confident, composed, successful. Everything they said I couldn't be without their help. The ceremony ended with applause and champagne. Yesenia hugged me tight, whispering, "You did it, girl. You really did it." My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another congratulatory text from a colleague. I pulled it out absently, then froze. There on the screen was my father's name, appearing for the first time in 7 years. "Francesca?" Yesenia touched my arm. "What's wrong?" I stared at the phone as it buzzed again and again. 3 missed calls in 2 minutes. He was desperate about something. "It's my father," I said, my voice distant. "Are you going to answer?" I watched the phone light up a 4th time, remembering my mother's sweet, poisonous voice telling me I wasn't worth investing in. Remembering my father's weak attempts to justify their choice. No, I said, moving to decline the call. But then a text appeared. Please, it's your mother. She's had a stroke. They say it's bad. We need you. The irony wasn't lost on me. After all these years, they needed the daughter they dismissed, needed the medical expertise they tried to deny me. I looked at Yesenia, who'd read the message over my shoulder. What are you going to do? My new white coat suddenly felt very heavy on my shoulders. I'm going to do my job, I said, and pressed the call button. Francesca? My father's voice cracked. Thank God. Your mother, she collapsed this morning. The local hospital. They're transferring her to your hospital. They say it's the only place that might be able to help. I pressed my fingers against my temple, maintaining professional calm. What's her status? I don't understand all the medical terms. Something about a basilar artery? They said it's severe, rare. Please, princess, we need... Oh, don't call me that. I cut him off. I'll review her case when she arrives. That's all I can promise. I hung up before he could respond and turned to Yesenia. I need to find Christian. Dr. Christian Hoffman, chief of neurosurgery, was in his office reviewing files. He looked up as I knocked. Ah, Dr. Francesca, congratulations on the white coat. I just got word about an incoming transfer. Complex basilar artery occlusion. I want you on this. The patient, I said carefully, is being transferred from Memorial General. He nodded, sliding the preliminary scans across his desk. Arrived at their ER this morning. Woman in her 50s, massive stroke. They don't have the expertise to handle it. Given your recent paper on basilar thrombectomy techniques, I thought, I'll take it. Christian raised an eyebrow at my quick response. Review the scans first. This is high risk. I picked up the images, studying them with clinical detachment. The blockage was severe, positioned in one of the most dangerous areas possible. One wrong move during surgery would be catastrophic. When does she arrive? Within the hour. Her family's driving up separately. He paused. You seem intense about this one. I kept my face neutral. Every case matters. The ER called 40 minutes later. I stood at the ambulance bay, watching the paramedics unload her stretcher. My mother looked small and pale, nothing like the commanding presence I remembered. Tubes and monitors surrounded her like a technological cocoon. BP's dropping, one paramedic reported as we rushed her inside. Patient's been in and out of consciousness. I performed the initial assessment mechanically, checking pupil response, motor function, verbal responses. 7 years of silence dissolved into medical terminology and vital signs. Dr. Francesca, a nurse called from the doorway. Her family's here. They're asking to speak with the surgeon. Send them to the consultation room, I said, without looking up. I'll be there shortly. I finished my examination, then stood for a moment watching the monitors. One small adjustment to her medication, one slight delay in treatment, and nature would take its course. No one would question it. These cases were often fatal. Don't even think about it. Yesenia's voice came from behind me. That's not who you are. I wasn't. You were. She stepped beside me. But you're better than them. Remember that. I nodded, straightened my white coat, and headed to the consultation room. Through the window, I could see my father pacing, Colin slumped in a chair, and a young woman I assumed was his latest wife hovering uncertainly. I pushed open the door. The sound made them all look up. The recognition hit in waves. First my father, who stumbled backward like he'd been struck. Then Collins, whose face drained of color. The young woman just looked confused. I'm Dr. Francesca, I said professionally. I'll be handling this case. Franny, my father whispered. We didn't know. They didn't tell us. The basilar artery occlusion is severe, I continued as if he hadn't spoken. The location makes it extremely high risk. I need consent forms signed for emergency surgery. Collins stood up shakily. Can you help her? I met his eyes for the first time in 7 years. I'm the best chance she has. Please, my father stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. I need those forms signed. Now. The young woman, Colin's wife, suddenly spoke up. Wait, do you all know each other? Before anyone could respond, Christian appeared in the doorway. Dr. Francesca? A word? I followed him into the hallway, knowing what was coming. That reaction wasn't normal, he said quietly. Do you know them? I looked back through the window. My father had his head in his hands. Collins was explaining something to his wife, who kept glancing at me with wide eyes. No, I said firmly. I don't know them at all. Christian studied me for a long moment. Are you sure you can handle this case? I'm the best you have for this procedure, I replied. You know that. He nodded slowly. All right. But Francesca, whatever's going on here, don't make me regret this decision. I watched him walk away, then turned back to the consultation room. Through the glass, I saw my father holding the consent forms, pen hovering uncertainly. Time to see if they'd trust their precious daughter with a life or death decision after all. The ICU was eerily quiet as I conducted my initial consult. My mother lay unconscious, machines tracking every flutter of her compromised brain. The stroke had attacked the very core of her being, the part that controlled speech, the part that made her so dangerously persuasive all those years ago. Blood pressure stabilized, the nurse reported, but her Glasgow coma scale is concerning. I nodded, making notes in her chart. Professional distance was easy when the patient couldn't speak, couldn't manipulate, couldn't justify. A commotion at the door made me look up. Collins burst in, ignoring the ICU protocols, with our father and his wife trailing behind. You can't just disappear for 7 years and then act like this is normal, he shouted. We deserve some kind of explanation. I continued writing in the chart. This is an ICU. Lower your voice or leave. Franny, please. My father stepped forward. We've missed you so much. We tried to find you. Mr. Gardner, I cut him off, using his formal name like a scalpel. Your wife has a critical basilar artery occlusion. Without immediate intervention, she will likely suffer permanent brain damage or death. That's what matters right now. Nothing else. Colin's wife, I still didn't know her name, touched his arm. She's right, honey. This isn't the time. Like hell it isn't, Colin snapped. Do you even care that she's our mother? Or is this just another surgery to you? I finally looked up, meeting his gaze. Would you prefer I transfer her case to someone else? Someone with less experience with this particular procedure? He deflated instantly. No, God, Francesca, how did we get here? I believe it started with $90,000, I replied coldly. Now, I need to examine the patient. I moved to my mother's bedside, performing the necessary neurological checks. My father hovered nearby, shifting from foot to foot like he used to do when I was sick as a child. Your hands, he whispered. They're so steady. They have to be. I tested my mother's pupil response. I'm a neurosurgeon. We know, Colin's wife said suddenly. I mean, we've seen your name in medical journals. Colin shows me sometimes. I glanced at my brother, who looked away. So he'd been tracking my career. Interesting. A soft moan from the bed drew everyone's attention. My mother's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening as they landed on me. Her mouth worked, trying to form words, but the stroke had stolen her voice. Don't try to speak, I said clinically. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Do you understand? One blink. Do you know who I am? One blink. Tears formed in her eyes. Do you know where you are? 2 blinks. You're in the neurology ICU. You've had a severe stroke. I'll be performing surgery to remove the clot, but there are risks. Do you understand? 1 blink, More tears. Dr. Francesca. A nurse appeared at the door. Dr. Christian wants to see you. I nodded, turning to leave, but a weak hand grabbed my wrist. My mother's grip was fragile, nothing like the iron control she once wielded. Her eyes pleaded with me, but for what? Forgiveness? Understanding? Death? I gently removed her hand. Try to rest. You'll need your strength. In the hallway, Christian was waiting with Dr. Sophia, our lead neurologist. Their expressions made my stomach tighten. We've reviewed the case, Sophia said carefully. Are you sure you should be doing this surgery? I'm the most qualified, I replied. That's not what I asked. She crossed her arms. I saw how they reacted to you. There's clearly history there. History doesn't matter. The surgery does. Christian stepped closer. Francesca, if there's any personal connection that could compromise, would you like to see my success rates with this procedure? I interrupted. Or perhaps review my research. The patient needs surgery within the next 4 hours, or the damage becomes permanent. Who else here can do it? They exchanged glances. We all knew the answer. No one. Fine, Christian sighed. But I'm assisting, and at the first sign of there won't be. I turned to leave, then paused. And Christian? Thank you for trusting me. Back in the ICU, I found Collins alone with our mother. He was holding her hand, whispering something I couldn't hear. When he saw me, he straightened up. The surgery, he said hoarsely. What are her chances? I looked at our mother, this woman who had shaped both our lives in such different ways. That depends on whether you trust me to do my job. Do we have a choice? No, I said simply. You don't. The surgical planning room was a fortress of solitude as I reviewed the scans one final time. Each image showed the delicate architecture of my mother's brain, the clot lurking like a dark secret in her basilar artery. You've been staring at those scans for an hour, Yesenia said, placing a coffee beside me. The path hasn't changed. I can't afford a single mistake. I traced the planned surgical route with my finger. Not with this one. Because she's your mother, or because she's not? Before I could answer, Sophia entered with a stack of papers. Final consent forms are signed. OR's prepped. But I need to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain you can do this? I met her gaze steadily. Would you like to observe the surgery? I plan to. Good. I stood up, gathering the scans. Then you can witness firsthand how professional I can be. The pre-op room was tense when I arrived for final checks. My father sat by my mother's bedside, while Collins paced nearby. His wife had finally gone to get food. My mother was awake, her eyes following my every movement as I checked her vitals. When I leaned in to examine her pupils, she grabbed my hand again. You need to stay calm, I said professionally. Any agitation increases risk. She shook her head frantically, trying to speak. Only garbled sounds emerged. Mom, please! Colin stepped forward. Let her work. She ignored him, squeezing my hand harder. With visible effort, she managed to form one clear word. Sorry. The monitor showed her heart rate climbing. That's enough, I said firmly, extracting my hand. You can apologize after surgery if you still want to. Right now, I need you stable. A nurse appeared with the transport gurney. OR's ready, Dr. Francesca. As we moved her from bed to gurney, my father suddenly spoke up. Princess, if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, I cut him off, because I'm very, very good at what I do. No thanks to any of you. The words hung in the air as we wheeled her out, through the pre-op area, down the long corridor to the OR suite. With each step, I felt the weight of the past 7 years pressing down. Yesenia caught me outside the OR. Hey, remember when we practiced this procedure on cadavers last year? You could do it blindfolded. This is different. No, it's not. She gripped my shoulders. In there, she's not your mother. She's just another brain that needs fixing, that's all. I nodded, then pushed through the doors to scrub in. The familiar ritual of surgical preparation centered me, scrubbing each finger, each nail, up to the elbows, methodical, precise, just like always. Christian was already inside when I entered the OR, along with Sophia and a full surgical team. The atmosphere was charged with unspoken questions. Vital signs stable, the anesthesiologist reported. Patients under. I approached the table, accepting my gloves and gown. My mother's head was already positioned, draped, the surgical site marked. She looked anonymous like this, just another patient needing my skills. Final equipment check, I called out. Each team member responded in turn. As I picked up the scalpel, Christian spoke quietly beside me. Last chance to step back. I thought about stepping back, about walking away, about letting her experience just a fraction of the helplessness I'd felt 7 years ago. The poetic justice was tempting, but that wasn't who I was. That wasn't who I'd fought so hard to become. Beginning initial incision, I announced clearly. The blade descended with perfect precision. The first hour was textbook. I worked through layers of tissue with practiced ease, creating the path to the affected artery. The OR was silent except for the beep of monitors and my occasional requests for instruments. Then we reached the critical moment. The clot was visible, but accessing it required maneuvering through a maze of vital structures. One wrong move would be catastrophic. BP's dropping, the anesthesiologist warned. I see it, I replied calmly. My hands remained steady as I advanced the instruments. This was what I was born to do, what I'd sacrificed everything to achieve. Sophia leaned in closer, watching intently. I could feel her evaluating every movement, ready to call for intervention if I showed any sign of hesitation or bias. But there was no hesitation, no bias, only the pure, clean focus of surgery. Preparing for clot extraction, I announced. Everyone ready? The team murmured affirmation. Christian shifted slightly closer, ready to assist if needed. I positioned the instruments, knowing the next few minutes would determine everything: my mother's future, my professional reputation, and perhaps most importantly, what kind of person I truly was. Beginning extraction, I said. Suction ready. The moment of truth had arrived. As I maneuvered the instruments toward the clot, a memory flashed unbidden. My mother's voice on that fateful phone call, so casually destroying my dreams. My hand trembled for a fraction of a second. Dr. Francesca? Christian's voice held a warning. I took a breath, steadied myself. I'm fine. The next memory hit harder. My 16th birthday, watching Collins receive a car while I got a used textbook. You understand, don't you, dear? Your brother needs the confidence boost more than you do. BP dropping further, the anesthesiologist called out. Increase pressure support, I ordered, my voice clinical. The instruments moved with perfect precision, muscle memory taking over. This wasn't about the past. This was about surgery. Sophia leaned in closer. Careful with that approach angle. I know what I'm doing. The clot was almost within reach now. One wrong move could send fragments shooting into her brain, causing devastating damage. Or worse. Another memory. My father's weak protest as my mother emptied my account. Princess, we'll make it up to you somehow. My hands didn't shake this time. Instead, they moved with an almost supernatural steadiness, guiding the instruments through the delicate maze of blood vessels. Got it, I murmured, carefully engaging the clot. Suction ready. The extraction had to be smooth, controlled, perfect. Just like every other surgery I'd performed to prove myself worthy of this profession. BP stabilizing, the anesthesiologist reported. Time seemed to slow as I worked, each movement precise and deliberate. The OR fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors and the soft sound of surgical instruments. Clot's coming out, I announced. Stand by for potential complications. But there were no complications. The extraction was textbook perfect. perhaps the cleanest I'd ever performed. As I removed the last fragment, blood flow restored to the affected area immediately. Perfusion returning to normal, Sophia confirmed, her voice holding a note of surprise. Impressive work. I began the careful process of closing, layer by layer. Each suture was placed with the same meticulous care as the first incision. Only when the final dressing was applied did I step back from the table. Surgery successful, I announced. Time to close. 4 hours, 17 minutes. Christian nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Dr. Francesca. I'll inform the family. No, I said, stripping off my gloves. I'll do it. In the surgical waiting room, my father jumped up as soon as I appeared. Collins and his wife followed suit, their faces pale with anxiety. The surgery was successful, I said professionally. We removed the clot completely. Her brain is receiving normal blood flow again. My father's legs gave out, and he collapsed back into his chair. Thank God. Thank you, Princess. I mean, Dr. Francesca. When can we see her? Collins asked. She'll be in recovery for several hours. Once she's stable, you can visit briefly. I turned to leave, but Collins caught my arm. Wait, he said. Please, can we talk? I glanced at my watch. I have rounds. 5 minutes, please. Something in his voice made me pause. I nodded toward a quiet corner of the waiting room. Once we were alone, Collins seemed to deflate. I never thanked you, he said quietly. For the surgery? It's my job. No, he ran a hand through his hair. For not telling them about the scholarship. For letting them think they'd won. I stared at him. You knew? I found the acceptance letter in your room after you left. I wanted to tell them, to make them see what they'd done, but... He looked away. I was a coward. I always have been. Yes, I agreed coldly. You have. I knew you were the better one, he continued, the stronger one. But it was easier to let them baby me, to let them fix my mistakes. I didn't know how to stop being the favorite. You didn't want to. He flinched. No, I didn't. And now look at us. You're this brilliant surgeon, and I'm on my 3rd failed marriage, still living off their help. That sounds like a you problem. It is. He met my eyes. You won, Francesca. You became something amazing despite them, despite me. I checked my watch again. My rounds are waiting. Will you come see her when she wakes up? I thought about my mother lying there, unable to speak, unable to justify or manipulate. Perhaps now she'd finally have to listen. Yes, I said, I will. As I walked away, I heard Collins call after me. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, little sister. I didn't turn around, but my steps faltered for just a moment. Then I straightened my white coat and continued down the hall, leaving the past behind me once again. At least until tomorrow, when my mother would wake up and face the daughter she never believed in. The recovery room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors when I entered the next morning. My mother was awake, her eyes following me as I checked her vitals. Speech therapy evaluated you an hour ago, I said, reviewing her chart. They say you're making good progress. Try speaking slowly. She licked her lips. Francesca. Good. Any headache? Please. Her voice was weak but clearer than before. Sit. I hesitated, then took the chair beside her bed. Professional distance felt harder in the pale morning light. I'm sorry, she whispered. So sorry. You already said that before surgery. No. She reached for my hand. This time, I let her take it. Need to explain. Explain why you stole my future? My voice remained clinical. Or explain why Collins deserved it more. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Thought you were strong enough to survive without help. I pulled my hand away. That's not an explanation. That's an excuse. You were always so capable, so independent. Each word seemed to cost her effort. Collins needed more support. I needed support too. The words burst out before I could stop them. I needed my parents to believe in me, to be proud of me. We were proud. No, I stood up. You were threatened because I didn't need you to fix my mistakes like Collins did, because I made my own way. She tried to sit up straighter. You disappeared. 7 years, and look what I became without you. I gestured to my white coat, my hospital badge. I graduated top of my class. I'm publishing research. I'm saving lives. I know, her voice cracked. We followed your career, every article, every achievement. That stopped me. What? Collins brought us everything he could find. Your papers, conference presentations. She swallowed hard. We were so proud, but too ashamed to reach out. I laughed bitterly. Shame didn't stop you from calling when you needed a surgeon. No choice. She touched her throat. Best in the country, they said, for this surgery. That's right. I leaned closer. Your life was in the hands of the daughter you never thought was worth investing in. How does that feel? Fresh tears spilled. We were wrong. So wrong. Yes, you were. I straightened up. The surgery was successful. You'll make a full recovery. My professional obligations are complete. Please don't go. Her voice was stronger now, urgent. Give us chance to make it right. Make it right? I shook my head. You can't repay $90,000 worth of betrayal. Not about money. She struggled to find the words. About trust, love. Please, stay. Love? I moved to the door. Love doesn't come with conditions. Love doesn't play favorites. Love doesn't steal dreams. We learned too late. Yes, I agreed. You did. A knock at the door interrupted us. Collins stood there, looking uncertain. The nurses said she's talking, he said. Speech is improving. Motor function is good. She'll need therapy, but the prognosis is excellent. I stepped past him. She's all yours. Francesca, my mother called after me. Will I see you again? I paused in the doorway. That depends. On what? On whether you understand that I didn't save your life because you're my mother. I turned to face her one last time. I saved it because I'm a doctor. That's who I am, with or without your approval. Collins spoke up suddenly. She knows that. We all do. And we're sorry we didn't see it sooner. My mother nodded, tears streaming. So sorry. So proud. Please. I looked between them. My broken mother, my repentant brother. 7 years of silence hung in the balance. I have rounds, I said finally, but I'll check on you tomorrow, as your doctor. And as daughter. That, I said quietly, will take more time, if it happens at all. As I walked away, I heard Collins talking softly to our mother. Something about second chances and earned trust. Something about pride and regret. I didn't turn back, but I didn't block their numbers either. Maybe that was enough of a start. Yesenia was waiting at the nurse's station. How did it go? They're sorry, I said, picking up another patient's chart. They're proud. They want to make amends. And what do you want? I thought about my mother's tears, Colin's confession, the years of following my career from afar. I want to do my rounds. The rest, we'll see. She nodded understanding. One surgery at a time. One surgery at a time. The morning sun streamed through the conference hall windows as I adjusted the microphone. Hundreds of neurosurgeons filled the seats, waiting for my keynote speech on ethical challenges in high-stakes procedures. Today, I began, I want to discuss professional boundaries and personal connections in critical care. When does familiarity become a liability? The audience leaned forward as I clicked to my first slide. Consider this case study. A prominent neurosurgeon receives an emergency transfer patient with a rare basilar artery occlusion. The surgeon is the most qualified to perform the procedure. There's just one complication. The patient is the surgeon's estranged mother. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the front row, Yesenia gave me an encouraging nod. The ethical question isn't just about technical capability. It's about emotional neutrality. Can we truly separate personal history from professional duty? I walked across the stage, letting the question hang. The surgeon in this case chose to proceed. The operation was successful, but the real challenge came after, when professional distance collided with personal recovery. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Collins. Mom's latest scan came back clear. She asked if you're still coming for coffee tomorrow. I clicked to the next slide without checking the message. The medical community often discusses physical healing, but what about emotional healing? What happens when saving a life forces us to confront the very people who once tried to destroy our dreams? In the audience, I spotted Christian and Sophia, both watching intently. They knew now, of course. The whole hospital did. But instead of judgment, I'd found respect for maintaining professionalism when it mattered most. This surgeon discovered something crucial. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the operation itself. It's deciding what happens after the scalpel is put down. Another buzz, this time from my father. Proud of you, princess. Break a leg at the conference. I had stopped flinching at the nickname. The patient recovered fully. The surgeon continued excelling professionally. But the real healing? That happened in small moments. Coffee meetings, brief conversations, careful steps toward understanding. The audience was silent now, completely engaged. Not forgiveness. That word suggests forgetting. This was about recognition, about acknowledging past wounds while choosing not to let them dictate future actions. I clicked to my final slide, showing brain scans before and after the surgery. This case taught the surgeon, that true healing isn't about erasing damage. It's about finding new pathways around it. Just like the brain creates new neural connections after injury, we too can build new patterns of interaction. The presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause. During the Q&A, a young resident raised her hand. The surgeon in your case study, did she ever reconcile with her family? I smiled slightly. She learned that reconciliation isn't a destination. It's a process. Like any complex surgery, it requires precision, patience, and the understanding that some scars will always remain. After the conference, Yesenia found me in the lobby. Subtle way to tell your story, she said, handing me coffee. It needed to be told. I checked my messages finally. My mother wants to meet tomorrow. You going? Yes. I sipped my coffee. She's still in speech therapy. Says she wants to practice conversation with someone who won't coddle her. And Collins? Getting divorced again. But this time he's not asking our parents for money. He's actually seeing a therapist. Yesenia raised an eyebrow. Family growth all around? Something like that. I showed her my father's text. They're trying. Not always succeeding, but trying. And you? I'm doing my job. Being a surgeon, building a life. I smiled slightly. They're just adjacent to it now, not central, not anymore. My phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. Watched your speech online. You're right about new pathways. Thank you for letting us try to build them. Going to answer? Yesenia asked. I typed back, coffee tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late. You know what's ironic? I said to Yesenia as we walked out. They thought taking that money would break me. Instead, it made me unbreakable. And now I'm just me. Dr. Francesca, neurosurgeon, daughter, sister. I pushed through the revolving doors into the bright morning, but mostly neurosurgeon. Speaking of which, we have surgery in an hour. Right. I straightened my coat. Time to go save more lives. One surgery at a time, because that's who I was. Not defined by past betrayals or present reconciliations, but by the steady hands that held the scalpel and the determination that had carried me here. Everything else was just background noise to the rhythm of the OR monitor, marking each beat of a life saved, a path forward, a future earned entirely on my own terms.